When he heard those codes crackling through the radio at midnight, he froze. Mayday, Delta 77, coordinates. The other guards didn't understand, but he knew every word. Because 20 years ago, he was the one using those same codes. Welcome to Warriors. Before we dive into this powerful story of hidden skills and forgotten service, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? And if you've ever met someone whose past revealed itself in the most unexpected moment, hit that subscribe button. These stories matter. If you or someone around you has lived through similar experiences, share those stories in the comments and support the channel by subscribing so we can continue sharing these inspiring tales. The Grandview office complex stood 12 stories tall in the heart of downtown, and Tommy Reynolds had been walking its halls every night for 8 years. Same route, same schedule, same quiet efficiency that made him nearly invisible to the day shift employees who passed him in the morning. Tommy was 58, with silver hair kept military short and hands that showed decades of work. He wore the standard night security uniform, dark blue shirt, black pants, heavy flashlight on his belt, and a radio that connected him to the building's security desk and the other 3 guards on duty. What made Tommy different wasn't visible in his uniform or his badge. It was in the way he moved through those halls, with a precision that spoke of muscle memory developed somewhere else, in a time when attention to detail meant the difference between coming home and not coming home at all. The younger guards liked Tommy well enough, but they found him quiet, almost distant. He never joined their conversations about sports or weekend plans, never complained about the boring hours between midnight and dawn. He just did his job with a thoroughness that bordered on obsessive. Guys like clockwork, Jake Martinez, one of the younger guards, had said once. Same route every night, checks every door twice, never misses anything. It's like he was born to do this job. What Jake didn't know was that Tommy had learned his precision in the engine room of a Navy destroyer, where missing a gauge reading or ignoring an unusual sound could sink a ship and kill 300 sailors. Every night at 11:45 p.m., Tommy would arrive 15 minutes early, sign in at the security desk, and receive his radio and keys from Dennis, the evening shift supervisor. The handoff was always the same: a brief rundown of any issues from the day shift, a weather check, and the radio frequency assignments. Channel 3 for building security, Channel 7 for emergency services, and Channel 9 is still acting up, so avoid it unless you have to, Dennis would say, the same instructions he'd given for years. Tommy would nod, clip the radio to his belt, and begin his first round. Floors 1 through 12, checking doors, windows, and alarm systems. The route took exactly 47 minutes, if done properly, and Tommy had never taken longer. But Tommy's radio was different from the others. Not the equipment itself. They all carried the same model Motorola handsets. But how he used it. While the other guards chattered back and forth about nothing, complaining about the cold or sharing jokes, Tommy listened. He monitored frequencies that weren't part of his assignment, picked up chatter from police, fire, and Coast Guard communications that leaked into the building's radio system. Most security guards would find this background noise annoying. Tommy found it familiar. It was a Tuesday in the late September when the emergency call came through. Tommy was on the 7th floor, checking the quarterly report offices, when static erupted from his radio at exactly 12:23 a.m. Mayday, Mayday. This is Delta 77. We have engine failure. Take it on water. Position coordinates 41.2, negative 71.4. Repeat, This is fishing vessel Delta 77 requesting immediate assistance. The voice was tense but controlled, someone who understood that panic kills faster than any emergency. Tommy stopped walking. His hand went to the radio automatically, muscle memory overriding 8 years of security guard protocol. For a moment, he wasn't standing in a corporate hallway. He was in the communications room of the USS Lady Gulf, coordinating rescue operations in the North Atlantic. Jake's voice crackled through on the building frequency. "Hey, did you guys hear that weird transmission? Sounded like some kind of boat emergency." Mike, another guard, responded, "Yeah, probably just radio bleed through from somewhere. Happens all the time with these cheap radios." But Tommy was already moving, not toward the elevator to continue his rounds, but toward the stairwell that led to the roof. Because he knew something the younger guards didn't, that wasn't radio bleed-through. That was a real distress call, and if he was hearing it, it meant they were close, probably within 20 miles of the coast. On the building's roof, Tommy had installed what looked like a small antenna array for better radio reception. What he hadn't told anyone was that it was a modified marine radio system, capable of reaching Coast Guard frequencies with clarity and range that his belt radio couldn't match. Tommy keyed the microphone with the steady hand of someone who had done this thousands of times before. "Delta 77, this is Shore Station Grandview. I copy your Mayday. Are you able to give me souls on board and nature of your emergency?" The response came back immediately, relief evident in the caller's voice. "Shore Station Grandview. We have 4 souls aboard. Engine seized. We're taking on water through a hull breach. Bilge pumps are failing." Tommy's mind automatically shifted into the mode he'd learned 20 years earlier. "Delta 77, I'm relaying your position to Coast Guard Station Chatham. Can you deploy life rafts?" "Negative, Shore Station. Rafts are damaged. We're in survival suits, but water temp is approximately 55 degrees. Tommy was already dialing the Coast Guard emergency number on his cell phone while maintaining radio contact. When the duty officer answered, Tommy's voice carried an authority that made the young petty officer sit up straight. "This is Thomas Reynolds, retired Navy communications specialist. I have a vessel in distress, position 41.2 by negative 71.4. 4 souls aboard. Vessel flooding with failed bilge pumps." "Sir, how are you receiving this transmission?" "I'm monitoring from a shore station and maintaining direct contact with the vessel. They need immediate assistance." Within minutes, Coast Guard helicopters were spinning up at Chatham Station. By 1:15 a.m., the Coast Guard helicopter had reached Delta 77 and successfully hoisted all 4 crew members to safety. Tommy had maintained radio contact throughout the operation, providing communications relay between the helicopter crew and the vessel, translating technical details and coordinates with a precision that came from years of training. As Tommy was shutting down his equipment, Jake appeared on the roof. "Tommy? Man, where did you go? I've been looking everywhere for—" Jake's voice trailed off as he saw the radio equipment, the antenna array, and Tommy speaking into a handheld microphone with professional calm. "Coast Guard Rescue 6503, this is Shore Station Grandview. Be advised, all 4 souls are secure and vessel is clear. Standing by for any additional communications requirements." Jake stared as Tommy signed off and began securing his equipment. "What the hell, Tommy? What is all this stuff?" Tommy looked at the younger man for a long moment, then sat down on the concrete barrier that ran around the roof's edge. 22 years, Navy," he said simply. "Communications specialist aboard destroyers and frigates. Coordinated search and rescue operations from the Caribbean to the North Sea. Jake's mouth fell open. "You were Navy? Why didn't you ever say anything?" "Because it doesn't matter what you used to be. What matters is what you do when someone needs help." But as they stood on that roof, with the city lights spread out below them, and the fading sound of Coast Guard helicopters in the distance, Jake understood that it did matter. It mattered that for 8 years they had worked alongside someone who carried the skills and instincts of a lifetime of service. It mattered that when 4 people were dying in the cold Atlantic, there was someone nearby who knew exactly what to do. Word spread quickly through the building's security staff. Not because Tommy told anyone, he went back to his rounds as if nothing had happened, but because Jake couldn't keep quiet about what he'd witnessed. "You guys don't understand," Jake told Mike and the others during their next shift briefing. "He had this whole setup on the roof. Professional radio equipment, Coast Guard frequencies, everything. And when he was talking to them, he sounded like he was running the operation." Mike shook his head. "Tommy? Our Tommy? The guy who barely says 10 words a shift? I'm telling you, man, it was like watching a different person. He knew all the codes, all the procedures. The Coast Guard guy on the phone treated him like he was one of them." When Tommy arrived for his next shift, the atmosphere was different. There was a new respect in the way the other guards looked at him, a recognition that the quiet man they'd worked with for years was someone they'd never really known. Tommy handled it the same way he handled everything else, quietly, professionally, without fanfare. He signed in, took his radio and keys, and began his rounds. But now, when the younger guards had questions about emergency procedures or radio protocols, they asked Tommy, and he answered, sharing knowledge gained in places far more dangerous than corporate hallways. 6 months later, Tommy still walked the same routes, checked the same doors, maintained the same professional standards. But the radio on his belt carried more meaning now. The other guards understood that their quiet colleague was more than just a security guard. He was a link to a larger world of service and sacrifice. The equipment on the roof remained, though Tommy never advertised its presence. Twice more that year, he intercepted emergency calls from vessels in distress, each time providing the crucial communications link that connected people in danger with the help they needed. "Why do you do it?" Jake asked him one night, as they passed in the hallway. "I mean, it's not part of the job. Nobody expects you to have all that equipment up there." Tommy paused in his rounds, looking out through a window at the harbor lights in the distance. "Because when I took the oath, it didn't come with an expiration date," he said simply. 20 years ago, I swore to protect and defend. That doesn't stop when you change uniforms." Tommy Reynolds never sought recognition for his nighttime rescues. No news interviews, no commendations, no social media posts about his heroic actions. He simply did what needed to be done, the same way he'd done for 2 decades in the Navy and 8 years as a security guard. That's the thing about real warriors. They don't retire from serving others. They just find new ways to stand watch, new ways to be the difference between someone coming home safe and not coming home at all. Sometimes they're walking corporate hallways with flashlights and radios. Sometimes they're monitoring emergency frequencies from downtown rooftops. But when the call comes, when someone, somewhere, needs help in the dark, they're ready. Have you ever met someone like Tommy? Someone whose quiet professionalism hid years of service and sacrifice? Someone who never stopped being a guardian, even when no one was watching? Share their story in the comments below, because here at Warriors, we believe that every veteran, every quiet sentinel, deserves to be recognized. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe to Warriors and help us honor those who serve in uniform and out of uniform, on active duty and in retirement. We'll see you in the next story. And until then, remember, the watch never ends for those who truly understand what it means to serve.